Welcome back. In the previous task, you learned how to do some data mining using the if function. In this task, you will learn how to relate tables located in different worksheets and search for information using the VLOOKUP function. You will see on the spreadsheet that there is a second worksheet named Customer Info, which relates the customer ID number that we have in the first table with the company name for the customer and the client representative. Let's say that in the first table, you would like to add an additional column that includes the company name in addition to the client ID. Using the VLOOKUP function, we can actually look up this information, which would relate the customer ID listed for each sale to the company name. So let's see how we would do this. We're going to first add a new column to insert that company name, and we'll position it to the left of the model column so that it's right after the customer ID. So we're going to right-click on column G and select Insert Columns, and we'll name this new column Company Name. Now let's learn about the VLOOKUP function and how we can use it. Our goal is to insert the company name using the client ID that is stated for each sale. So for example, since the client ID for the first sale is 132, if we go to the second worksheet, that should list the company name of Bankia. And we're going to do that with the VLOOKUP function. Doing it manually for each cell would take forever, and that's why it's useful to have a function that can look up information from another worksheet or even from the same worksheet and pull that information to this table. So we'll start by writing the function VLOOKUP in cell G5. And as we do with all functions, we start with the equal sign, VLOOKUP. And then as we did with the if function, we could press tab to open up the parentheses. And now let's see what we want to include in our function. So the first thing that we need to include is the lookup value, which in this case is the customer ID number from cell F5. So you'll click F5, and that's what we're trying to look up. Then we have to select the table array. So it's the cells where we're going to check if we can find this customer ID number. And that is when we're connecting it to the second worksheet. So now we're connecting information from two different tables located in two different worksheets. But all you have to do is go to the second worksheet, and we're going to highlight the cells from A4 to C12. So we're highlighting these cells with the content of the second table. And up here, we can keep track of what we're including in our function. And you can see that when we highlighted these cells, it references that these cells belong to the customer info worksheet or tab. So we don't have to do anything special when referencing two different worksheets. It automatically detects that we're in the customer info worksheet. And now for this range, we are going to want to anchor these cells so that the range doesn't change when we apply this formula to the other cells for the column. We could do this by adding a $ in front of the A and the 4, and then in front of the C and the 12. But there's also a shortcut to do this, which is using F4 on your keyboard. So by typing F4, which I'll do right now, you could see that it has added the $ in front of the letters and the numbers for our reference cells. So after specifying the table array, you then need to specify the column index number from the reference table of the value you want to return. Our reference table is the one we have just highlighted, and it has 3 columns, where column 1 is the customer ID, column 2 is the company name, and column 3 is the name of the client representative. So in our case, we would write 2 because we want the function to return the company name. So in our formula, after the table array, we'll have comma 2. And lastly, you're going to have a true or false statement depending on whether you want an approximate or an exact match. The vast majority of the times you use VLOOKUP, you'll state false. to look for an exact match. So here, after the 2, you'll have a column, false, and we'll close our parentheses. And now after closing our parentheses, we could check our formula again. So we have F5, then the cell reference with the dollar signs, then the column index number of 2 for the company name, comma, false for the fact that we're looking for an exact value. And now we could press enter, and you'll see that it took us back to our first worksheet, and it has inserted the company names that match with the different customer IDs for our table. Great. Well, now let's practice this again, but this time adding a new column with the names of the client representatives. The process will be the same, but the column that the VLOOKUP function returns will be different. If you're up for the challenge, pause the video and use the VLOOKUP function to look up the names of the client representatives. You will need to add a new column positioned to the right of the company name column you just created, and come back when you're done. Great, let's see. Well, in this case, you would have F5 for the customer ID from the table in the sales data worksheet. You have the cell reference, the same as before. Now, the only thing that changes is that the column index number is number 3 because it's the third column that we want to get as a response, the client representative name, and then the condition of false. Now, we could press enter and it will take us back to our table. So for this example, you should have added a new column, named it company name, and you would have written the VLOOKUP function in cell H5. And you could see that it has auto-populated this new column with the client representative names. Great job. Well, this step completes this task where you have learned how to reference tables located in different worksheets and search for information using the VLOOKUP function. In the next and final task, you will learn how to use pivot tables to analyze your data.